everyone, welcome to my channel Learn with Tabish. Today we are going to discuss a very important theme for students and especially for CSS aspirants, which is breaking down a question. Now, over the years of teaching CSS aspirants, one of the most frequent questions that I've faced is the question is very lengthy and we do not know what to put into our answers when we read the question. Now, usually what happens is when an aspirant reads a question, they automatically scan the question for a topic or a theme which is familiar to them. Let's take an example here that they would scan the question for a topic and that topic turns out to be the Kashmir issue. So immediately, as soon as they identify a topic with which they are familiar with, the aspirant immediately begins writing every bit of information that they have, that they can recall, without keeping in view what is the demand of the question and without checking what they're writing is relevant or not. Which is why it is very important to learn how to break down a question in order to understand what we need to write in our answers. Now, let's take a question from the past papers. And remember that this skill that you learned here today can be used in other exams and other subjects as well. Now, the first problem that aspirants face is usually with questions that are very lengthy. And I'm going to use that for the example. So here is the question. Now the question is, the last 2 decades have seen the rise of the right as a potent threat to the liberal democracies throughout the world. What are the causes of this rise and how can states attend to this challenge? And this question is from the current affairs examination in 2021, which was question number 4, as I've mentioned here. Now, in the first reading, this is an overwhelming question, but it's easy if we break it down. So, the first step is see this statement written in the first instance, which is underlined for you here. You will note that there is nothing that is being asked here. Rather, it is just a statement which sets the premise of the question. Now, many questions that the aspirants will face in the examinations will be as such. They will have a statement before the question. These statements indicate an assumption or a premise that the aspirant has to hold true and write their answers in consideration of this statement. What this means is you cannot disagree with this question and you have to assume that this statement is actually true, and in relation with this statement, you have to build your answer. In the next part, you will see that the questions are now beginning after the statement. For example, the first question after the statement is, what are the causes of this rise? Now, remember, whenever a question begins with what, the answer must be descriptive. What always assumes that you will provide description. And writing a description is very easy. All you have to do is provide a chronological history of the event or the phenomena that is being asked with relevant examples and case studies. In the next part, the second question is how can the states attend to their challenge? Now, here you need to remember that whenever a question begins with how, the process of an occurrence or a phenomena is being asked. Over here, the examiner is looking that this question when it is asked, how can states attend to this challenge? The examiner is assessing the aspirant's problem to solution capability. In more easier terms, the problem solving ability of an aspirant is being assessed whenever a question that begins with how is asked. Moving on. The second part of the problems that aspirants face is the opposite, that the question is fairly straightforward, like the 2 examples given here, what are the causes and how can states attend to it. but the aspirants fail to identify the correct variables or correlate them. Let us continue with the same question that we have broken down to learn how to identify variables. Apart from the interrogative clauses, such as what are the causes or how can states attend to them, or other questions such as where, when, and how, the easiest way to identify variables in a question is simply look at the jargons or the technical terminologies that are present. So in this question, we can see that the rise of the right as well as liberal democracies are two terms that are jargons or are technical to this field of international relations or political science. Now, once you have identified your variables, and if they are jargons, that means that you need to keep these jargons or these variables the center of your answer. Always remember that whatever the interrogative clauses are, automatically they become variables as well. So what and how are also variables that are connected or correlated with the two identified in the statement, which are liberal democracies and rise of the right. Another easy way to spot variables is to look for topics and themes which generally students do this practice. So over here we have the two themes, or rather one topic, which is liberal democracies. So this is how you easily break up the question and then are able to identify the variables from it. Now, in order to move ahead in your writing and how to write the answers, and after breaking down the question, you need to correlate the variables and the interrogative parts and see how they can be arranged and what needs to be put into it. So how do you correlate the variables? Very easily. So rise of the right and versus liberal democracies. This is a variable that we picked up from the indicative part or the statement that was present in the question initially. So the second thing that we need to do is to describe the causes of the rise of the right, which again we got from the question that was immediately following the statement. Next is then we have to explain the process of dealing with it, which is the second question, which was beginning with how. Once you have done that, all you need to do is then conclude your question, or conclude your answer rather, and there you go. You have a very rough outline of what your answer should look like. So let's revise before we finish up. The easiest way is to identify what are the variables, and variables can be picked up from the jargons or technical terminologies, and other variables can be picked up from the interrogative part. Then, once you have understood what is the premise from the statement and what are the variables and how you have to correlate them, you make a rough outline and chronologically arrange them. And from there, you can easily begin writing your answer. Well, there you go. We just covered up how to break down a question and extract what are the variables that you need to answer. And I hope this video was very helpful for you. Do not forget to practice this skill as you prepare for your CSS examinations. And do not also forget to like, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with all of your friends. Take care. Allah Hafiz.